Tonight, I want you to understand something that can completely transform your life if you truly accept it. Your world is not happening to you randomly. Your circumstances are not independent of your inner conversation. The life you experience every day is deeply connected to the way you think, the way you feel, and the assumptions you quietly carry within yourself. Most people believe thinking is merely reacting. They wake up and think according to what they see. If the bank account is low, they think thoughts of lack. If people reject them, they think thoughts of sadness. If life delays their desires, they think thoughts of defeat. But this is not correct thinking. Correct thinking begins when you stop allowing appearances to control your mind. The human imagination is one of the greatest gifts ever placed within you. Whatever you repeatedly accept internally begins to shape your outer reality. You may not see it immediately, but every thought mixed with belief becomes a seed planted into the subconscious mind. In time, that seed grows into conditions, events, opportunities, relationships, and experiences. So the question is not whether you are thinking. The question is, are you consistently thinking from? There is a difference between wishing for a better life and mentally living in the feeling of that better life. Many people pray for abundance while secretly feeling poor inside. They ask for love while feeling unwanted within themselves. They desire peace while constantly imagining disaster. The outer request means very little when the inner state contradicts it. Correct thinking means aligning your inner world with the reality you desire before it appears physically. If you wish to become successful, do not spend your days rehearsing failure in your imagination. Do not keep telling yourself that life is unfair, that others are lucky, or that your moment will never come. Every time you repeat those thoughts, you strengthen them. You give them life. You energize them with emotion. Instead, begin to think from the end. Ask yourself, how would I think if my desire were already fulfilled? How would I walk? How would I speak? How would I feel waking up in the morning? Would I still be worried? Would I still doubt myself? Would I still expect disappointment? The secret is not forcing positive words while remaining fearful inside. The secret is the emotional state of fulfillment. When the mind and feeling unite, something powerful begins to happen. Your assumptions harden into fact. This is why two people can live in the same city, face similar challenges, and yet experience completely different lives. One constantly imagines obstacles. The other imagines possibilities. One mentally prepares for rejection. The other prepares for victory. Their outer lives eventually mirror their dominant inner attitudes. You must become aware of your mental diet. Every day, countless thoughts pass through the mind, but not all thoughts deserve your attention. If you constantly entertain fear, jealousy, anger, and limitation, you are training your mind to produce more of the same. But if you deliberately choose thoughts of confidence, gratitude, abundance, and peace, you begin reshaping your reality from within. Many people underestimate repetition. They think a thought once and expect immediate change. But the subconscious mind responds to persistence. Whatever you repeatedly feel to be true becomes accepted as reality internally. Once accepted internally, life begins organizing itself externally around that belief. Look here. Your life. The patterns you experience often reveal the thoughts you have practiced for years. If you believe nobody values you, you will unconsciously notice rejection everywhere. If you believe success belongs to others, opportunities may appear invisible to you. But when you change the assumption within yourself, the outer experience starts changing too. Do not wait for evidence before you believe. That is the old way of thinking. Correct thinking believes first and witnesses afterward. A farmer does not dig up the seed every morning to check if it is growing. He plants it with faith, waters it consistently, and trusts the unseen process. In the same way, you must plant new assumptions within yourself and remain faithful to them even when appearances temporarily disagree. This does not mean denying reality in a foolish way. It means refusing to give temporary conditions the final authority over your identity and future. Your imagination is not fantasy. It is the workshop of creation. Every great achievement first existed in someone's mind before it appeared in the world. Every invention, every success story, every transformation began as an inner image sustained with belief. So if you wish to think correctly, stop using your imagination against yourself. Do not imagine failure before the interview happens. Do not rehearse arguments before conversations occur. Do not picture loss before life even moves in that direction. Too many people suffer twice, once in imagination and once in reality. Some suffer entirely in imagination and never realize they created prisons in their own minds. Instead, train yourself to imagine lovingly, confidently, and faithfully. At night before sleep, feel the wish fulfilled. See yourself already becoming the person you desire to be. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the joy. Let that feeling impress itself upon the deeper mind. Sleep in the assumption that what you seek is already moving toward you. And during the day, guard your mind carefully. The world will always offer reasons to doubt, but your power is in choosing what you accept internally. You are not powerless. You are not merely a victim of circumstances. There is creative power within your awareness, and the moment you begin directing it consciously, life begins responding differently. The greatest transformation is not changing the outside first. It is changing the inner conversation that has silently shaped your world for years. Once the mind changes, the direction of life changes. Think correctly, and you will eventually live correctly. Your dominant thoughts and feelings are far more powerful than most people realize. Every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are shaping the direction of your life by what you repeatedly accept within yourself. The mind is not simply a place where thoughts pass randomly. It is a creative center. It is a silent force constantly influencing your reactions, decisions, emotions, expectations, and ultimately your reality. Most people spend their lives believing the outer world is the cause of their inner state. They believe circumstances determine how they should feel. If money is low, they feel fear. If relationships fail, they feel unworthy. If opportunities disappear, they feel hopeless. But there is a deeper truth that many overlook. The outer world often reflects the inner assumptions a person has carried for a long time. A person who constantly thinks thoughts of failure begins to move through life differently. They hesitate. They doubt themselves. They expect rejection. They even try. Without realizing it, they start making choices that align with those expectations. Their energy changes. Their confidence weakens. Their imagination becomes filled with negative outcomes. Eventually, life begins mirroring the very thoughts they repeatedly entertained. On the other hand, a person who consistently thinks from confidence, abundance, and possibility develops a completely different inner atmosphere. They expect good things. They notice opportunities others ignore. They recover quickly from setbacks because failure does not define their identity. Their thoughts strengthen them instead of weakening them. Over time, their life begins to reflect those dominant mental patterns. This is why two people can face similar situations but experience completely different outcomes. One sees obstacles everywhere, while the other sees opportunities. One feels trapped by conditions, while the other feels capable of overcoming them. The difference is often rooted not in external circumstances, but in dominant thoughts and emotional states. Your feelings are especially important because feelings impress ideas deeply into the subconscious mind. A thought repeated, emotion becomes powerful. If you constantly think fearful thoughts with strong feeling, those fears begin to feel real even before any evidence appears. Likewise, if you repeatedly feel gratitude, confidence, love, or success internally, those emotions begin shaping your expectations and behavior in powerful ways. The subconscious mind accepts what you emotionally believe to be true. It does not carefully judge whether your thoughts are helping or harming you. It simply absorbs repetition and feeling. That is why negative self-talk can become dangerous over time. If a person constantly says, "Nothing ever works for me," "I am unlucky," or "I will never succeed," the subconscious mind begins accepting those statements as truth. Eventually, life starts reflecting those inner convictions. Many people unknowingly use their imagination against themselves every single day. They rehearse worst-case scenarios. They imagine failure before taking action. They replay painful memories repeatedly. They expect disappointment even during moments of hope. They create emotional experiences internally that eventually influence the direction of their external lives. But imagine the transformer that occurs when a person begins consciously directing their thoughts and feelings. Imagine waking up each day and deliberately choosing thoughts that align with the life you desire instead of the life you fear. Imagine refusing to mentally bow before temporary difficulties. Imagine training yourself to feel worthy, capable, peaceful, and successful before physical evidence appears. This is where true change begins. The outer world often takes time to rearrange itself, but the inner world can change immediately. The moment you choose a new assumption, a new emotional direction becomes possible. If you persist in that assumption, it gradually becomes natural to you. What once felt impossible begins feeling believable. What once felt distant begins feeling familiar. You must understand that dominant thoughts are not occasional thoughts. Everyone has moments of fear or doubt. The real question is, what thoughts do you consistently return to? What emotional state feels most natural to you throughout the day? That is what shapes your life most powerfully. If your dominant state is worry, you will likely notice more reasons to worry. If your dominant state is gratitude, you will begin noticing blessings that were always present but previously ignored. Attention follows belief. Life often reveals more of what the mind is prepared to see. This does not mean life will never contain challenges. Difficult moments exist for everyone. But dominant thoughts determine whether challenges destroy you or strengthen you. A fearful mind collapses quickly under pressure. A disciplined and hopeful mind continues forward despite obstacles. You are always feeding your future through your inner conversations. Every thought repeated daily becomes part of your mental environment. Every feeling sustained regularly becomes part of your identity. Over time, these inner patterns influence the way you speak, act, decide, react, and perceive reality itself. So guard your thoughts carefully. Do not allow temporary circumstances to convince you that defeat is permanent. Do not build an identity around fear, limitation, or disappointment. Begin choosing thoughts that support the person you wish to become. The life you experience tomorrow is deeply connected to the thoughts and feelings you consistently entertain today. Correct thinking begins when you stop allowing present limits to define your future. Most people think according to appearances. They look at their current circumstances and allow those conditions to control their emotions, expectations, and imagination. If they see lack, they think thoughts of poverty. If they experience delay, they think thoughts of failure. If life becomes difficult, they assume their dreams are impossible. This way of thinking traps people inside the reality they wish to escape. The mind was never meant to be chained to appearances. True transformation begins when a person learns to think from the wish fulfilled instead of thinking from present limitations. There is a powerful difference between wanting something and mentally living as though it is already becoming real within you. Many people say they desire success, but internally they continue identifying with failure. They hope for abundance while emotionally feeling poor. They ask for peace while constantly imagining disaster. Their words express desire, but their inner state remains connected to limitation. As long as the mind stays emotionally attached to the old condition, change becomes difficult. Thinking from the wish fulfilled means entering the mental, emotional state of the person you desire to become. It means asking yourself, if my desire were already true, how would I think? How would I feel? How would I speak to myself? What assumptions would feel natural to me? A person who already feels successful internally does not spend every moment obsessing over failure. A person who feels loved internally does not constantly expect abandonment. A person who feels abundant internally does not live in continual fear that everything will disappear tomorrow. The inner state always influences the outer experience. This is why imagination is so important. Imagination allows you to mentally move beyond present limitations before physical reality changes. Long before results appear externally, transformation begins internally. When you repeatedly imagine yourself already experiencing the life you desire, the mind slowly accepts that new reality is familiar. At first, this may feel unnatural because most people are deeply conditioned by appearances. They have spent years allowing circumstances to define identity. If they fail once, they call themselves failures. If they struggle financially, they see themselves as permanently limited. If people disappoint them, they assume life will always be painful. But these assumptions are not permanent truths. They are mental habits developed through repetition. The moment you begin thinking from the wish fulfilled, you interrupt those old patterns. Imagine a person who dreams of financial freedom but constantly says, I never have enough. Even if opportunities appear, that inner assumption may block confidence, action, or awareness. But if that same person begins feeling gratitude, stability, and confidence internally, Their relationship with life begins changing. They start noticing possibilities. They become more creative. Their decisions improve because fear no longer dominates their thinking. The same principle applies to every area of life. If you desire peace, you must stop mentally rehearsing conflict all day. If you desire confidence, you must stop identifying with insecurity. If you desire love, you must stop feeding thoughts of rejection constantly. Your inner conversations are shaping your future more than you realize. Thinking from the wish fulfilled does not mean pretending problems do not exist. It means refusing to give temporary conditions absolute A over your identity and destiny. Circumstances can change. Conditions can improve. But inner assumptions often determine whether change becomes possible. A farmer plants seeds because he believes growth will come even before evidence appears. In the same way, you must plant new assumptions in the mind before external results arrive. If you constantly dig up those mental seeds with doubt, fear, and negative thinking, growth becomes difficult. Faith is not merely religious language. Faith is sustained inner conviction. Every person lives by faith in something. Some have faith in failure. Some have faith in disappointment. Some expect rejection before conversations even happen. Others expect opportunities, blessings, and solutions. Whatever a person consistently expects often shapes emotional reactions and behaviors in powerful ways. The human mind moves toward what feels most natural internally. That is why repetition matters. When you repeatedly think from the end result desired, the feeling becomes more natural over time. The subconscious mind slowly accepts it. Eventually you stop hoping weakly and begin expecting confidently. This shift changes the way you move through life. A person who thinks from limitation constantly waits for proof before believing in possibilities. A person who thinks from the wish fulfilled believes internally first and allows external reality to catch up later. This is not blindness or fantasy. It is disciplined inner direction. The world constantly reflects mental attitudes in subtle ways. Fearful thinking creates hesitation and emotional exhaustion. Hopeful thinking creates movement and resilience. Confident thinking opens the mind to opportunities that fear once hid. Your imagination can either imprison you or liberate you. Many people use imagination to picture disaster repeatedly. They create painful scenes in the mind before anything even happens. They mentally prepare for rejection, embarrassment, or loss. Then they wonder why anxiety dominates their lives. But imagination was not given to you to produce suffering. It was given to help shape possibility. Every night before sleep, you have an opportunity to enter the feeling of the life you desire. Feel the joy of fulfillment. Feel the peace of knowing things are working in your favor. Feel gratitude before evidence fully appears. These emotions impress the subconscious deeply. Over time, your dominant inner state becomes stronger than temporary appearances. When you think from the wish fulfilled, you stop being emotionally controlled by present limitations. You begin living with greater confidence, peace, and expectation because your mind is no longer trapped by current conditions. And often, the moment your inner state truly changes, the outer world slowly begins changing with it. Repeated assumptions quietly shape the direction of a person's life more than occasional thoughts ever do. Every day, people think thousands of thoughts, but the thoughts repeated consistently with emotion begin forming beliefs. Over time, these beliefs settle deep within the subconscious mind and start influencing perception, behavior, expectations, and experiences. Whether those assumptions are positive or negative, empowering or limiting, they gradually become part of a person's identity. Most people do not realize how powerful assumptions truly are. They believe life is shaped only by external events, luck, or circumstances. But long before outer conditions appear, there is often an inner pattern that has been repeated so many times it became accepted as truth. The mind accepts repeated ideas as familiar, and familiarity eventually becomes belief. If a person repeatedly tells themselves they are not good enough, that assumption slowly grows roots within the subconscious mind. Even if opportunities appear, they may hesitate to pursue them because the deeper belief says they are unworthy. If someone repeatedly assumes people cannot be trusted, they may unconsciously expect betrayal everywhere. That expectation influences the way they communicate, react, and interpret situations. Eventually, their experiences begin reflecting the emotional atmosphere they have carried within themselves for years. This is why repetition matters so much. The subconscious mind learns through repetition and feeling. It does not sharply distinguish between what is imagined repeatedly and what is physically experienced. Whatever the mind consistently accepts with emotion begins shaping inner identity. Once something becomes part of identity, behavior and perception naturally follow. Think about how many beliefs people carry without questioning them. Some people assume success belongs only to others. Some assume they are always unlucky. Some assume life is supposed to be difficult. Others assume happiness never lasts long. These assumptions may have begun in childhood experiences, painful failures, criticism, or repeated disappointments. But after years of repetition, they become automatic mental patterns. A person may not even consciously notice these beliefs anymore because they feel normal. That is the danger of repeated assumptions. The mind adapts to them so completely that they begin appearing like facts instead of mental habits. A person who constantly assumes rejection may walk into every conversation with insecurity. A person who assumes failure may avoid taking risks entirely. In both cases, the outer behavior reflects the inner assumption. But the opposite is also true. When a person repeatedly assumes confidence, possibility, peace, and success, those assumptions begin reshaping the mind in powerful ways. New emotional patterns develop. New expectations emerge. The individual starts reacting differently to life. Opportunities that once seemed invisible become noticeable. Challenges no longer feel like permanent defeat. The inner atmosphere changes, and eventually the outer experiences begin shifting too.
Ma'am.
People wish for change while continuing to repeat the same limiting assumptions every day. They want abundance but constantly say, "I never have enough." They want peace but mentally rehearse fear all day. They want confidence but repeatedly focus on past failures. The mind cannot easily move toward a new reality while remaining emotionally attached to the old story. This is why conscious repetition is important. If you want your life to change, you must begin changing the assumptions you repeatedly feed into your mind. At first, the new thoughts may feel unnatural because the old beliefs have become deeply familiar. But familiarity was created through repetition, which means new beliefs can also be created through repetition. A person who repeatedly affirms worthiness, abundance, peace, and possibility gradually weakens old mental patterns. The subconscious mind slowly begins accepting these new assumptions as normal. Over time, emotional reactions change. Confidence increases. Fear loses some of its control. This process is not magic in the childish sense. It is the natural influence of repeated mental conditioning. Whatever dominates your inner world eventually affects you. Outer behavior, relationships, and decisions. Consider how athletes train. They repeat movements until those actions become automatic. Musicians practice scales until their hands move naturally. In the same way, the mind becomes conditioned by repeated assumptions. Whatever you rehearse mentally becomes easier to believe emotionally. That is why negative thinking repeated daily becomes dangerous. Fear repeated long enough starts feeling like truth. Worry repeated long enough begins controlling perception. Doubt repeated long enough weakens confidence. Many people unknowingly condition themselves into limitation through constant mental repetition. Some wake up every morning already expecting stress, disappointment, and struggle. Before the day even begins, their mind is rehearsing negativity. This repeated emotional conditioning influences how they interpret events throughout the day. Even small problems appear overwhelming because the mind has been trained to expect difficulty. But imagine the power of reversing that process. Imagine beginning each day by assuming that opportunities exist for you. Imagine repeatedly reminding yourself that growth is possible, that peace is available, that abundance can increase, that your future does not have to repeat your past. At first, these assumptions may feel unfamiliar, but repetition gradually changes emotional acceptance. The mind becomes what it repeatedly entertains. This is why guarding your inner conversations matters deeply. Every statement repeated internally is shaping belief. Every emotional pattern practiced regularly is influencing identity. If you constantly criticize yourself mentally, that criticism becomes part of your subconscious conditioning. If you repeatedly encourage yourself with faith and possibility, strength begins developing internally. Many people underestimate the quiet power of consistency. Great changes often begin invisibly within the mind long before they appear outwardly. The person who transforms their assumptions eventually transforms their emotional state. That emotional state influences choices, reactions, confidence, persistence, and relationships. Your repeated assumptions are building the blueprint of your future every single day. If you wish to experience a different life, begin by changing what you repeatedly accept as true within yourself. Do not allow old limitations to endlessly repeat themselves unchecked. New assumptions practiced consistently can slowly create a new inner reality. And once the inner reality changes deeply enough, the outer world often begins responding in ways that once seemed impossible. One of the greatest responsibilities you will ever have is guarding your mental diet. Most people pay close attention to what they feed their bodies, yet they rarely examine what they feed their minds. They allow fear, doubt, negativity, anger, and limitation to enter their thoughts repeatedly without realizing the effect these patterns have on their emotional state and future experiences. But the mind is like fertile soil. Whatever is planted repeatedly will eventually grow. Every thought you entertain carries energy. Some thoughts strengthen you while others weaken you. Some thoughts expand possibility while others shrink your confidence. If you constantly feed your mind fear and limitation, those thoughts begin shaping the atmosphere within you. Over time, they influence the way you see yourself, the way you see others, and the way you interpret life itself. A person who constantly dwells on fear begins expecting problems every day. Even small difficulties feel overwhelming because the mind has become conditioned to anticipate disaster. They may wake up already anxious about the future. They imagine failure before opportunities even begin. They replay painful memories repeatedly until negativity feels normal. This is what happens when the mental diet is left unguarded. The human mind naturally moves in the direction of dominant thoughts. Whatever you repeatedly focus on gains emotional strength. If you spend your days complaining internally, criticizing yourself, and expecting disappointment, those patterns begin shaping your identity. The subconscious mind accepts repeated emotional impressions as truth, whether they help you or harm you. This is why guarding your mind is not optional if you desire peace, confidence, and transformation. Many people unknowingly poison their inner world every day. They constantly consume negative conversations, fearful predictions, discouraging opinions, and endless comparisons. Then they wonder why they feel emotionally exhausted. The mind absorbs what it repeatedly experiences. Just as unhealthy food affects the body over time, unhealthy thoughts affect the emotion, and spiritual condition of a person. Fear is especially dangerous because it grows through attention. The more a person feeds fearful thoughts, the more real those fears begin to feel. Even events that have not happened start producing emotional suffering. Many people spend years mentally rehearsing disasters that never actually occur. Their imagination becomes a tool for anxiety instead of creation. Doubt works in a similar way. When a person repeatedly tells themselves they are incapable, unlucky, or unworthy, those ideas slowly become emotional beliefs. Confidence weakens, motivation decreases. Opportunities are avoided because the mind has accepted limitation as identity. But the beautiful truth is this: the mind can also be trained in the opposite direction. If negative thinking can condition the mind into fear, then positive and disciplined thinking can condition the mind into strength, peace, and confidence. What you repeatedly feed your mind eventually becomes familiar. What becomes familiar starts feeling natural. That is why consistency matters so much. A healthy mental diet begins with awareness. Most people do not even notice how negatively they speak to themselves. This throughout the day. They say things internally they would never say to someone they love. They constantly criticize their appearance, their abilities, their future, and their worth. Over time, this inner criticism creates emotional heaviness. You must begin listening to your inner conversations carefully. When fearful thoughts arise, do not automatically accept them as truth. When limiting beliefs appear, question whether they deserve authority over your future. Not every thought deserves your agreement. Thoughts become powerful when you repeatedly entertain them with emotion and attention. This does not mean pretending life is perfect or denying challenges. It means refusing to allow fear and limitation to dominate your inner world. Temporary circumstances should not become permanent mental prisons. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to transform the mental atmosphere. A grateful mind begins noticing blessings that fear once ignored. Gratitude shifts attention away from constant lack and redirects it toward possibility and abundance. Even during difficult seasons, gratitude reminds the mind that life contains more than struggle alone. Peace also grows through mental discipline. Many people search for peace externally while allowing chaos to rule internally. But peace begins with the thoughts you permit yourself to dwell upon repeatedly. If the mind constantly feeds on conflict, comparison, and worry, inner calm becomes difficult to maintain. You must become selective about what you allow into your consciousness. The conversations you entertain, the media you consume, the people you constantly listen to, and the thoughts you repeatedly repeat all influence your mental condition. A person surrounded by negativity every day will eventually feel emotionally drained unless they intentionally protect their inner world. Confidence is also built through mental diet. A person who repeatedly focuses on strengths, growth, and possibility gradually develops greater emotional resilience. This does not mean arrogance. It means choosing thoughts that support life instead of destroying it. Every day you are either feeding fear or feeding faith. You are either strengthening limitation or strengthening possibility. You are either rehearsing defeat or preparing your mind for growth. The mind becomes shaped by repetition. If you repeatedly imagine failure begins feeling familiar. If you repeatedly imagine peace, success, and confidence, those emotional states begin feeling more natural. Over time, your reactions, decisions, and expectations change accordingly. Many people wait for the outer world to improve before changing their thoughts. But true transformation often begins internally first. When your mental atmosphere changes, the way you experience life changes as well. A disciplined mind does not allow every negative thought to settle permanently. It notices destructive patterns and redirects attention intentionally. This takes practice, patience, and persistence. But every time you refuse to feed fear, you weaken its influence. Every time you choose gratitude over bitterness, possibility over hopelessness, or peace over panic, you strengthen a healthier inner state. Your thoughts are shaping your emotional future every single day. Protect your mental diet carefully, because what repeatedly enters the mind eventually enters the heart, influences behavior, and affects the direction of your life. Imagination is one of the most powerful gifts placed within the human mind, yet most people use it unconsciously against themselves. Instead of creating visions of hope, peace, success, and possibility, they spend their days imagining failure, disappointment, rejection, and fear. They replay painful memories repeatedly. They mentally rehearse arguments that have not happened. They picture worst-case scenarios before situations even unfold. Without realizing it, they train the mind to expect negativity. But imagination was never meant to become a prison. It was meant to become a creative force. Every achievement in human history existed first as an idea within someone's imagination. Before buildings were constructed, they existed mentally. Before inventions changed the world, someone imagined them. Before lives transformed outwardly, inner visions were formed first. Imagination is not meaningless fantasy. It is the ability to mentally experience possibilities beyond present conditions. The problem is that many people allow current circumstances to control their imagination completely. If life becomes difficult, they imagine even greater difficulties ahead. If one failure occurs, they picture endless failure. If someone hurts them, they imagine future rejection everywhere. In this way, imagination becomes connected to fear instead of possibility. The mind moves toward what it repeatedly pictures emotionally. When negative scenes are rehearsed daily, the body reacts as though those imagined situations are real. Anxiety increases, confidence weakens, fear grows stronger. A person begins living emotionally trapped inside mental pictures that may never even happen. This is why imagination must be used consciously. You have the ability to direct your inner images intentionally. Instead of constantly visualizing defeat, you can begin imagining the life you truly desire. You can mentally create scenes of success, peace, love, abundance, healing, and confidence. When these images are repeated with emotion, they slowly influence the subconscious mind. The subconscious responds deeply to feeling and imagery. Whatever the mind repeatedly experiences internally begins to feel familiar. Over time, familiarity changes expectations. Expectations influence behavior, perception, and emotional reactions. In this way, imagination quietly shapes the direction of life. A person who constantly imagines success begins approaching life differently. Their confidence grows because the mind has been into emotional connection to possibility instead of defeat. They notice opportunities more easily because fear no longer dominates their awareness. Challenges no longer appear impossible because internally they have practiced seeing themselves overcoming obstacles. This is not about pretending life contains no difficulties. Challenges exist for everyone. But imagination determines whether a person becomes emotionally defeated by those challenges or strengthened despite them. Many people wait for the outer world to change before allowing themselves to feel hopeful. They say, "Once my circumstances improve, I will believe." But conscious imagination works differently. It creates the inner emotional atmosphere first. It teaches the mind to experience the feeling of fulfillment before physical evidence fully appears. If you desire peace, begin imagining yourself peaceful. If you desire confidence, see yourself speaking and moving confidently. If you desire abundance, imagine the relief and gratitude that would come from financial freedom. These inner experiences begin changing emotional patterns over time. The human mind cannot easily distinguish between vividly imagined emotions, experiences, and physical ones. This is why fear feels so real even when danger has not yet happened. The body reacts to imagined scenarios constantly. But the same principle can work positively. The mind can also respond to imagined peace, imagined confidence, imagined success, and imagined joy. Every night before sleep becomes an opportunity to consciously direct imagination. Instead of replaying worries and disappointments, create mental scenes that reflect the future you desire. Feel the emotions connected to those scenes. Experience gratitude internally. Allow the subconscious mind to absorb those impressions deeply. Repetition matters greatly. One moment of positive imagination may inspire you briefly, but repeated imagination changes deeper patterns. Just as fear grows stronger through repetition, confidence and possibility also grow stronger through repetition. You must become careful about the images you constantly feed your mind. Many people unknowingly consume fear every day through conversations, media, comparisons, and internal dialogue. Then they wonder why anxiety feels overwhelming. The imagination becomes filled with disaster because it has been trained to focus on negativity constantly. But you can retrain the mind. When fearful images arise, you do not have to surrender to them automatically. You can redirect attention toward a better vision. At first, this may feel difficult because old mental habits are deeply familiar. But persistence gradually weakens negative patterns and strengthens healthier ones. The imagination shapes emotional identity more than many realize. A person who continually imagines themselves powerless eventually feels powerless. A person who imagines themselves growing stronger begins developing greater resilience internally. Your inner world influences your outer experience every day. People often underestimate how much emotional energy comes from imagination. A hopeful imagination creates motivation. A fearful imagination creates paralysis. A loving imagination creates warmth and connection. A bitter imagination keeps old wounds alive. Whatever images dominate the mind repeatedly begin influencing the emotional atmosphere within you. That is why conscious imagination is so important. You must stop using your mind as a place for endless fear and self-destruction. Instead, use imagination to mentally rehearse the life you truly desire. See yourself becoming healthier, wiser, stronger, more peaceful, more successful, and more fulfilled. Let those inner visions become emotionally real. The outer world may not change instantly, but inner transformation always begins somewhere. Imagination often becomes the starting point. A person who can consistently imagine better possibilities eventually begins moving through life differently. Their energy changes, their reactions improve, their expectations rise, their courage increases. The inner picture starts influencing the outer journey. What you repeatedly imagine today is helping shape the person you are becoming tomorrow.